Welcome to African Tales and Hearts, where stories of love, family, and destiny come alive. The reception hall in Lekki was glowing. Gold drapes. White chairs trimmed with satin. A live band humming softly while waiters moved with trays of champagne and small chops. The bride stood near the high table, smiling for pictures. Perfect lace. Perfect gele. Perfect composure. Until the whispers began. They say the accounts have been frozen. Is it true he borrowed money for this wedding? EFCC has entered the matter. Her smile stiffened. A man in a dark suit rushed toward the groom, panic flashing across his face. Their hurried conversation caught attention. Phones came out. Murmurs spread like wildfire. The band slowed. The room shifted. The bride's heart pounded as reality clawed its way to the surface. And just as the night threatened to collapse, the story pulled backward. 3 years earlier, life was quieter. She lived in a small flat in Surulere. The walls were thin, the power unreliable, and the ceiling fan worked only when NEPA allowed. But she was not unhappy. She had him. He was hardworking, respectful, and consistent. The kind of man Nigerian mothers prayed for their daughters. He saved every naira. Spoke of building a future slowly. Believed in dignity before display. Let me establish myself properly, he would say. We'll do things right. She nodded. But each time she opened Instagram and saw classmates posting vacations in Dubai. Each time her friends compared wedding halls and husbands' cars. That patience began to feel like a delay. Love started to feel small. Then she met him. He arrived like a promise fulfilled. Expensive car. Loud confidence. Stories of well contracts, property deals, and connections up there. He spoke boldly. Struggle is not a badge of honor, he told her one afternoon at a cafe in Victoria Island. Life is meant to be enjoyed. He bought her things without blinking. Posted her proudly. Introduced her to people who mattered. For the first time, she felt visible. Respected. Chosen. The man who loved her noticed the change. Late replies. Missed calls. A distance she didn't bother to hide anymore. He didn't accuse her. Didn't fight. One evening, as they sat outside during another blackout, he asked gently, "Do you still believe in what we planned?" She looked away. That silence was louder than any insult. The final conversation came without shouting. Without tears. "I'm tired," she said. "I don't want to suffer." He steadied her face. "I never promised you suffering," he said quietly. "I promised you growth." She shook her head. Growth is too slow. The truth hung heavy between them. "I'm choosing him," she said at last. He stood. Adjusted his shirt. And before leaving, he said softly, "May what you're chasing not destroy you." She watched him walk away. She had chosen wisely. Unaware that this decision would cost her everything. Life changed faster than she had prepared for. Within weeks of ending things with him, she packed her bags and left Surulere quietly. The compound gate closed behind her without ceremony, as if even the walls understood she would not be returning. She did not look back. There was nothing there she wanted to remember. Her new home was a serviced apartment in Lekki Phase 1, the kind she had only ever admired on social media. The first night she slept there, she woke suddenly in the early hours, confused by the stillness. No generator roaring in the distance. No neighbors arguing. No heat clinging stubbornly to her skin. She lay still for a long moment, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the soft glow of uninterrupted light. She smiled in the dark. "So this is how rich people sleep," she whispered. In the morning, she walked barefoot across polished floors, opening cupboards she had not paid for, touching furniture she had never imagined owning. The mirrors were large. The windows are wide. Outside, security men paced the compound calmly, greeting her respectfully when she passed. Her new man moved through this life effortlessly. He never paused at price tags or asked questions. He spoke of money as something that arrived when needed. Relax, he told her whenever she hesitated. I didn't bring you here to struggle. At restaurants, he ordered confidently. At the gate, he nodded at guards who already knew his face. When he introduced her, he did so with pride. This is my woman, he would say, hand firm at her waist. And people responded differently to her now. Receptionists smiled quicker. Waiters hurried. The doors opened without explanation. For the first time in her life, she was not just watching success, she was standing inside it. And slowly, quietly, she began to believe that love without comfort had been a mistake she was finally correcting. Her phone became the stage where her new life performed daily. Every outing was documented, never too desperate, never too loud, but deliberate. Brunch at a quiet spot in Victoria Island, where plates were arranged like art and waiters addressed her as madam. Sunset dinners by the lagoon. Short weekend trips where hotel mirrors were always clean enough for pictures. Her captions were carefully chosen. Grateful. God did. When preparation meets opportunity. Nothing boastful. Just enough to let people know she had crossed over. The response was immediate. Friends who once shared transport money with her now sent private messages. How did you do it? Please, help us pray. Your glow is different. At family gatherings, the change was obvious. Aunties who once asked when she would settle down properly now nodded with approval. Younger cousins stared at her shoes and handbag, whispering among themselves. That your man looks responsible, one auntie said loudly, as if announcing a verdict. At least you won't suffer. Her mother began to relax. She slept better at night, telling neighbors that her daughter had finally married well, even though the wedding date was still ahead. And slowly, something hardened inside her. She started to see her past as weakness. The years of managing small money. Patience. The encouragement she had once offered a man who was still building. Why had she waited so long, she wondered, when comfort had been this close all along? When old friends complained about rent or fuel prices, she listened politely but without empathy. Their problems felt distant now, like stories from a life she had already outgrown. At night, as she scrolled through her own posts, she felt a quiet satisfaction. Not joy, something sharper. Validation. She had proof now. Proof that leaving had been the right decision. Proof that she had not been foolish for wanting more. Proof that suffering was optional, not noble. And in those moments, she stopped thinking about the man she had left behind. He belonged to a chapter she had closed, one she was certain she would never need to reopen. The proposal came on a Friday evening, dressed as an ordinary invitation. He told her to get ready early. Nothing dramatic, just dinner, he said. But when they arrived at a quiet restaurant in Ikoyi, she sensed something different. The staff greeted him by name. A small table by the water had been set apart, candles already lit, soft music floating in the background. She felt her heartbeat quicken. As they sat, he spoke easily, recounting stories of upcoming deals, places they would travel, the life he envisioned. His confidence wrapped around his words, leaving no room for doubt. Then, midway through the meal, he stood. The restaurant fell into a hush. A violinist appeared from the side, the melody slow and deliberate. She stared, unsure whether to laugh or cry. He reached into his pocket and brought out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. The ring inside was elegant, not overly large, but unmistakably expensive. It caught the candlelight, scattering it across the table. From the moment I met you, he said, voice steady, I knew you were meant for more than waiting. I want us to build that life together. Will you marry me? She didn't hesitate. Yes, she said, the word tumbling out before he finished the question. Applause erupted from nearby tables. Someone recorded it on a phone. The waiter smiled knowingly, as if he had been expecting this all along. Before dessert arrived, her phone was already buzzing. Messages poured in, friends screaming in capital letters, cousins sending voice notes, aunties calling immediately. You have won, one friend wrote. This is the dream, another said. God has remembered you, an auntie's voice declared over the phone. When she called her mother, the woman cried openly. Thank God you did not marry suffering, her mother said between sobs. I can finally rest. As she hung up, she stared again at the ring on her finger. It felt like proof. Proof that her patience had ended. Proof that she had chosen correctly. Proof that the life she had always wanted was finally, unmistakably hers. Planning the wedding became a full-time performance. From the moment the proposal was announced, expectations multiplied. Asoebi lists expanded beyond what she had imagined. Friends wanted colors coordinated. Family members argued over fabrics, tailors, and who would sit closest to the high table. Every decision felt public, measured, and judged. Her fiancé moved through it all with confidence. Don't worry, he kept saying. Everything will be settled. Vendors asked for deposits. Some were paid immediately. Others waited longer than usual, their polite reminders becoming firmer with each passing week. It's normal, he assured her. Big money doesn't move in small ways. She wanted to believe him. The wedding day arrived wrapped in noise and color. The hall in Lekki overflowed with guests. Chairs leaned under bright lights. The band praised loudly, calling his name, hailing him as a man who had arrived. Cameras flashed constantly. Laughter spilled from every corner. She stepped in wearing lace and geli, surrounded by bridesmaids who adjusted her train and whispered admiration. You made it, one of them said, squeezing her hand. This is life. Money sprayed in the air. Some notes were crisp. Some were folded carelessly. No one asked questions. The celebration demanded no explanations. From the outside, it was flawless. But small details slipped through the cracks. A vendor pulled her aside briefly, whispering about balance. She promised to speak to her husband. The decorator looked uneasy, smiling too tightly. The MC skipped over a few planned segments without explanation. She ignored it all. That day was not for doubt. When she stood beside her husband, smiling for pictures, she felt untouchable. Whatever uncertainty existed belonged to tomorrow. Today was proof that she had chosen correctly, that she had escaped struggle, that she had stepped fully into the life she deserved. As the night wore on and guests began to leave, she leaned toward him and whispered, "Thank you for giving me this." He smiled, kissed her cheek, and said, "Anything for you." The words comforted her. She didn't notice the way his phone vibrated endlessly in his pocket. She didn't hear the hushed conversations happening just outside the hall. That would come later. Tonight, the illusion was complete. Marriage settled into their lives quietly, without ceremony. The first few weeks felt like an extension of the wedding, visits from friends, congratulatory messages, laughter that lingered long into the night. She enjoyed being called Madam. I enjoyed the way people now spoke to her with a little more respect. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, small things began to shift. The house help stopped coming regularly. When she asked why, her husband waved it off. She traveled. I'll sort it out. The electricity bill came later than expected. The internet was disconnected for 2 days before it was restored. Once, at a supermarket in Lekki, his card declined. He laughed quickly, pulled out another card, and paid without looking at her. Network wala, he said lightly. She laughed too, though something inside her tightened. At night, his phone rarely left his hand. He stepped out to take calls, lowering his voice. When she entered the room unexpectedly, conversations ended abruptly. Business, he said whenever she asked. Big man issues. She told herself not to pry. Rich men, she believed, carried burdens ordinary people could not understand. Still, sleep no longer came easily. She lay awake some nights, listening to his pacing, the low murmur of urgent conversations drifting through the walls. Please, just give me more time. I'll pay for it, I swear. Don't embarrass me. In the morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. Jokes returned. Confidence restored. She followed his lead, choosing comfort over confrontation. Once, when she gently asked if everything was all right, his smile faded briefly. "Do you want peace or questions?" he asked. "You can't have both." She went silent. In Nigeria, a woman who asked too many questions was often blamed when things fell apart. And she had already shown the world that she had married well. Admitting uncertainty felt like inviting shame. So she adjusted. She spent less, asked less, smiled more. And every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself of the life she had left behind, the darkness, the waiting, the slow progress. Whatever this was, she told herself, had to be better than that. But deep inside, a quiet truth began to surface. Soft life, she was learning, could still be heavy. She ran into him on a quiet afternoon at Ikeja City Mall. At first, she didn't recognize him. He looked different, not richer, not flashier, just settled. His clothes were simple but clean, his posture relaxed, his face free of the tension she remembered. He greeted her politely, as if they were old acquaintances. "Good afternoon," he said, offering a small nod. She responded coolly, lifting her chin slightly. Her eyes flicked briefly to the modest bag he carried, then away. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied shortly. "Married?" He smiled. "I heard. Congratulations." There was no bitterness in his voice. No regret. And somehow, that unsettled her. They exchanged a few more polite words before parting. As she walked away, she felt an urge, sharp and sudden, to prove something. Later that evening, she told her friends about the encounter. "I saw him today," she said, laughing. "Same life. Still managing." Her friends laughed with her. "Thank God you escaped. Imagine where you'd be now. You really dodged a bullet." She joined in, louder than everyone else. Inside, a strange mix of relief and superiority swelled. She replayed the meeting in her mind, convincing herself she had seen exactly what she expected, a man still stuck, still dreaming, still waiting. That night, as she scrolled through her old messages, she deleted the last thread she had kept from him. No more reminders. No more doubts. She had chosen comfort over patience. Visibility over belief. And she wore that choice like armor. Pride settled into her chest, firm and unyielding. Whatever unease lingered from earlier cracks was buried under one thought she repeated often. "At least I didn't choose suffering." The house grew quieter as the months passed. Not peaceful, heavy. The laughter that once filled the rooms faded into polite conversations and long silences. Weekend outings stopped without explanation. The bags she once carried proudly remained untouched in the wardrobe, their shine dulled by neglect. At first, she told herself it was just a phase. Every marriage has seasons, she whispered whenever doubt crept in. But the signs became harder to ignore. Credit alerts no longer came as often. When they did, the amounts were smaller. Her husband began to come home late, his shoulders tense, his phone pressed tightly to his ear. Some nights, he didn't come home at all, claiming meetings that ran too long. She learned to listen without appearing to listen. The words drifted through the walls late at night. "Please, just extend it. I'll settle everything soon. You can't do this now." Her chest tightened every time. One evening, she finally asked the question she had been avoiding. "Is everything okay?" she said softly, careful not to sound accusing. He stopped walking. Turned slowly. "What kind of question is that?" he snapped. "You think I don't know what I'm doing?" The room went silent. She apologized immediately, the words rushing out of her mouth before pride could catch up. "I was just asking," she said. "I didn't mean anything." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "You women don't understand pressure," he muttered. "Leave business matters to me." She nodded. Because in Nigeria, a woman's loyalty was often measured by how much she endured without speaking. After that, she adjusted her behavior carefully. She spent less. She asked fewer questions. She smiled more in public. At family gatherings, she defended him before anyone could ask. "He's just busy," she said. "Big men don't rest." But late at night, alone in the bathroom, she stared at her reflection and felt a knot tighten in her stomach. This was not the soft life she had imagined. This was anxiety wrapped in silence. Still, she told herself she could not complain. She had chosen this life publicly. And in Nigeria, nothing was more dangerous than failing in front of people who had celebrated your success. The first crack appeared on an ordinary afternoon, the kind of day that should have been easy. She had just finished a late breakfast and was scrolling through her phone, half watching the cleaner wipe down the kitchen counter. Outside, Lekki traffic hummed, distant horns rising and falling like a tired chorus. A notification popped up from an unfamiliar number. "Madam, please tell your husband to respond to our calls. This matter has dragged for too long." Her fingers went cold. She read it again, slower this time, hoping she had misunderstood. Another message followed almost immediately. "If payment is not made by Friday, we will escalate." She sat up straighter. Who was this person? Why were they calling her madam like they knew her? She clicked the profile, no picture, no status, nothing. Just a name that meant nothing to her. For a long minute she stared at the screen, listening to the cleaner's cloth scrape the counter, trying to pretend her heart wasn't beating too fast. She typed, "Wrong number," then deleted it. Typed again, "Who is this?" Then deleted that too. Anything she wrote felt like admitting fear. When her husband came home later that evening, he looked exhausted but tried to hide it with a smile. She waited until they had eaten and the plates had been cleared before bringing it up, careful to keep her tone light. "Someone messaged me today," she said, tilting her phone toward him. "About money." His eyes flicked to the screen and something sharp moved across his face before it vanished. "Delete it," he said too quickly. "Delete it," she repeated, surprised. "It's nonsense," he added, forcing a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Some people monitor successful men. They try to intimidate, that's all." She nodded, but unease settled in her stomach like a stone. That night, while he slept with his back turned, she lay awake listening to the air conditioner and the faint buzz of his phone on the bedside table. Every vibration felt like a warning. For the first time since the wedding, she wondered if the soft life she had posted online was built on something that could break. The next few days were filled with small, uncomfortable moments that she couldn't explain away. At church, after service, a woman from the choir greeted her warmly, then leaned in as if sharing prayer points. "I heard your husband is going through a tight phase," she whispered. "But God will intervene." Her smile froze. "Tight phase," she echoed, laughing lightly like it was a joke. The woman only patted her arm and walked off. Later in the week, a friend invited her to a small birthday dinner in Victoria Island. The table was full of laughter, gossip, and phone cameras angled for quick clips. She tried to relax, but the conversation kept brushing against her like thorns. One of the girls lowered her voice. "Sis, no vexo. I just want to ask, is everything okay at home?" "Why wouldn't it be?" she replied, too quickly. The girl shrugged. "It's Lagos. People talk. Someone said his partner pulled out. Another person said he's owing." She felt heat rise to her face. "That's a lie," she said firmly. "You know how jealous people are." They nodded, but she could tell they were filing away her reaction. That night, curiosity defeated pride. She searched his name online, then added words like lawsuit, debt, investment. Nothing clear appeared, only vague posts and threads that ended abruptly, as if someone had paid to clean the trail. A couple of comments mentioned big man packaging and borrowed lifestyle. She closed the browser and opened it again, hoping the words would change. In bed, she watched him scroll on his phone with his jaw clenched, thumb moving too fast. When she asked, "Anything?" he answered without looking up. "Just work." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to be the kind of wife who didn't disturb peace with questions. But the whispers had already entered her ears, and once whispers entered, they grew teeth. By morning, she was checking his face for signs, stress lines, forced smiles, the way his eyes avoided hers when money was mentioned. The soft life had started to feel like a room where the walls were slowly closing in. Reality landed on her in the most public way, at a checkout counter with strangers watching. She had stopped at a supermarket in Lekki to pick up groceries, rice, chicken, toiletries, a small carton of imported cereal she liked. Nothing extravagant, just the kind of shopping she no longer thought twice about. When it was time to pay, she handed over his card the way she always did. The cashier swiped. The machine beeped. Declined, the cashier said, flatly. Her mouth went dry. Try again, she said, forcing a smile. The cashier swiped again. Same beep. Same word. People behind her shifted inside. A woman clicked her tongue. Someone's basket bumped her heel. She felt every sound as if it were aimed directly at her. She reached for her own card quickly, praying it would work. It did. The receipt printed, and she collected the bags with shaking hands, pretending she couldn't hear the cashier's soft, pitying thank you. In the car, she sat for a full minute before starting the engine. Anger rose first, then fear, then something like shame. That evening, she waited until they were alone. Your card declined today, she said, looking at his face. Twice. He didn't even pretend surprise. His shoulders stiffened. So what do you mean, so? Her voice cracked despite her effort to stay calm. People were looking at me. This is not normal. He rubbed his forehead. It's a temporary issue. Temporary for how long? She pressed. Because things have been temporary since the wedding. He snapped, sudden and sharp. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I enjoy this? His voice filled the room, louder than it needed to be. You want to join the people outside to start judging me? She fell silent. Not because she agreed, but because she recognized the sound underneath his anger, panic. He paced, phone in hand, then stopped and pointed at her as if she was the problem. Don't embarrass me with questions, he said. I'm handling it. She nodded slowly, but inside, something shifted. A man with money doesn't shout at a receipt. A man with money doesn't fear questions. And for the first time, she began to understand that their soft life might not be soft at all, it might be borrowed, and the owners were coming to collect. 2 days later, she got confirmation without anyone handing her a confession. She returned home early because a client meeting had been canceled. The compound was unusually quiet, even the security guard avoided her eyes. As she walked up the stairs, she heard her husband's voice from inside the living room, low, urgent, the way it always sounded when he thought she wasn't around. No, please listen to me, he said. Just give me 1 more week. She stopped at the door, key still in her hand. A pause. Then his voice again, sharper. You can't show up at my house. Are you mad? My wife is here. Another pause. His breathing sounded heavy, like he was running. I said she doesn't know, he continued. I'm protecting her from all this. Don't drag her in. Her stomach dropped. Protecting her from what? She backed away silently and went down the stairs as if she had never arrived. She stood outside in the heat, pretending to take a phone call, while her thoughts ran wild. When she finally entered, he was seated on the sofa, face calm, scrolling as if nothing had happened. Welcome, he said. She forced a smile. I forgot something at work. He nodded, too quickly, and returned to his phone. That night, she decided to test the truth. She asked casually for money to send to her mother, expecting the usual quick transfer. He hesitated, then said, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went. No transfer. Another excuse followed, network issues, bank delay, a system upgrade. Her chest tightened with every lie. In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror, trying to hold her composure. This wasn't just a rough patch. This was a wall built out of secrets. She didn't cry loudly. She cried silently, wiping her face before stepping out. Then she did what pride had stopped her from doing for months. She opened a note on her phone and started listing every red flag she had ignored: late payments, hidden calls, sudden anger, missing money. Seeing it written down made it real. And once something becomes real, you can't unsee it. The final twist of the knife came from a place she didn't expect: her own social circle. On Saturday morning, she was scrolling through Instagram when a familiar name appeared on her feed, someone they both used to know, a mutual friend from the days she still lived in Surulere. The post was bright and celebratory, full of balloons, a ribbon cutting, and smiling faces standing in front of a modest but polished office building. Congratulations to my brother. Official launch of Horizon Logistics. From humble beginnings to real growth. God is faithful. Her breath caught. She zoomed in on the pictures, and there he was, her former love, standing in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled slightly, smiling like a man who could finally breathe. Behind him was a signboard with his company name, a few staff members in branded polos, and clients shaking his hand with respect. Not flashy. Not noisy. Just solid. She felt heat rise to her eyes, not from tears exactly, but from a sharp, choking regret that refused to soften. She remembered the night she had told him love didn't pay bills. She remembered his quiet face, the way he had walked away without begging. She had imagined him struggling, still dreaming, still waiting for life to open. But life had opened, just not for her. Later that afternoon, as if the universe wanted to rub it in, she saw a small billboard on the road toward 6. It wasn't huge, but it was there, an advert for the same logistics company, clean design, a phone number, a tagline about reliability. The kind of advert you paid for with money you actually had. Her hands gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles hurt. Back at home, her husband was in the bedroom making another call, voice tense. The contrast hit her like a slap, one man building quietly, another man patching holes with lies. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall, realizing something that made her stomach twist. She had traded a future for packaging. And packaging, in Lagos, is the easiest thing to buy, until the bill comes due. She thought the storm would pass if she could just hold her head high in public. So when her husband announced they had been invited to an exclusive event, she clung to it like a lifeline. It was a high-profile charity gala in Lekki, one of those Lagos nights where people came to be seen, to spray money for cameras, to remind the world they were still relevant. "We're your best," he told her, voice bright in a way that felt rehearsed. "Tonight will silence all those tongues." She wanted to believe him. She wanted one good night that would drown out the whispers, the declined cards, the missed transfers. She told herself that successful couples had seasons, they didn't panic over noise. On the day of the gala, she spent extra time getting ready. She pressed her gilly carefully. Her makeup was flawless. The dress hugged her like confidence. She practiced her smile in the mirror until it looked effortless. In the car, traffic crawled. Her husband kept checking his phone, tapping and swiping, jaw tight. Each time she asked, "Is anything wrong?" he answered, "Nothing." Focus. When they arrived, the hall glowed with gold lights and loud laughter. Photographers moved like hunters, catching couples at angles that made them look richer than they were. She stepped out of the car and felt the familiar thrill return, eyes on her, greetings thrown her way, people calling her madam with respect. Her husband held her waist for the cameras, smiling broadly. For a moment, she felt safe again. But as they walked toward the entrance, she noticed something strange. 2 men in plain shirts stood near the gate, not dressed like guests. Their eyes weren't admiring, they were scanning, measuring. One of them spoke into a phone and looked directly at her husband. Her husband's smile didn't move, but his fingers tightened on her waist. "Don't look," he murmured. "Just walk." A chill ran down her spine. She forced her heels forward, step by step, while her heart whispered a warning she couldn't ignore: this night wasn't proof. It was a trap waiting to close. Inside the hall, everything was loud enough to pretend nothing could be wrong. The band played. The MC cracked jokes. People greeted them with forced warmth, the kind Lagos reserves for couples whose story is already turning into gossip. She laughed at the right times and tried not to notice the way some eyes lingered too long on her husband's face. They were halfway through mingling when her husband's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and went pale. Without explanation, he stepped away from her, weaving through the crowd toward the side exit. She followed at a distance, not wanting to appear like a suspicious wife. Near the corridor, she heard his voice, low, furious. "I told you not to come here." A man's voice replied, too calm to be friendly. "Olga, you said Friday." "Today is Friday." Her stomach dropped. She moved closer, then froze when she saw them, two men in plain clothes, and another in a suit holding a file. Not guests. Not friends. Collectors. The suited man spoke again. "You have two options. Pay now, or we take the next step." Her husband tried to smile, tried to keep his voice controlled. "Let's talk outside." "Not here." But Lagos doesn't do private shame when money is involved. The men stepped closer. One of them raised his voice just enough for nearby guests to hear. "So you want to run again?" Heads turned. Conversations paused. Phones tilted suddenly. Her husband hissed, "Keep your voice down." The suited man opened his file. "This is a formal demand. You are owing. You have refused to respond. We are here to recover our funds." The words hit the air like a slap. Owing. Recover. Funds. She felt the room tilt. Her body reacted before her mind could. She stepped forward. "What is going on?" she asked, voice sharp with fear. Her husband swung toward her, eyes blazing. "Go back inside," he snapped. "This is not your business." But the suited man looked at her with pity. "Madam, we have been calling. We messaged you. Your husband knows." A murmur spread behind her. The sound of 100 quiet judgments forming at once. Her husband reached for her arm. "Ignore them," he said, trying to drag her away. But the moment was already too big to hide. The band continued playing inside, but it sounded distant now, like music at someone else's celebration while her own life collapsed in the corridor. The corridor wasn't wide enough to hold the truth. Guests drifted closer, curiosity stronger than manners. Someone whispered, "Is that not her husband?" Another whispered, "I heard he is owing people." The whispers grew teeth. Her husband's voice rose. "You people are mad. You want to disgrace me because of a small delay?" The suited man didn't flinch. "A small delay is months, sir." Then, as if the universe had planned the timing for maximum humiliation, two uniformed officers entered the corridor. Not many. Just enough to turn suspicion into certainty. She saw the way her husband's shoulders stiffened. His face went tight, eyes darting like a cornered animal. One officer spoke calmly. "Sir, we need you to come with us for questioning." A ripple went through the crowd. Someone gasped. Another person laughed under their breath. Phones came out openly now. Her husband tried to push past the men. "This is nonsense. I know people." The officer's expression didn't change. "Sir, please cooperate." Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. She grabbed her husband's sleeve. "What is happening?" she begged, voice breaking. "Tell me the truth." He turned to her and, for the first time, his eyes looked stripped, no packaging, no confidence, no charm. Just fear. "Later," he whispered. "Not here." But later was gone. Lagos had already started recording. A woman she recognized from church stood nearby, mouth open. A cousin's friend stared at her with wide eyes. Her phone buzzed with incoming messages, people asking if she was okay, people asking if the rumor was true, people sending emojis that felt like knives. The officer repeated, "Sir, come." Her husband's pride fought for one more second. Then the suited man said, loud enough for everyone, "Let's go. You can explain at the station." Station. The word echoed. In Nigeria, station doesn't just mean a place. It means disgrace. It means headlines. It means family shame. Her husband tried to laugh again, but it cracked. He looked at the crowd as if he could intimidate them into forgetting. They didn't forget. They filmed. And in the center of it all, she stood frozen, her perfect gelly and perfect makeup suddenly feeling like costume pieces on a woman who had been fooled. She didn't remember walking back into the hall, but somehow she did. The music was still playing. The lights still glittered. People were still dancing. Yet everything had changed. The hall felt like a stage after the actors had forgotten their lines. Someone tried to greet her with a fake smile. "Madam, sorry oh." Another person whispered loudly, "I told you it was packaging." She wanted to disappear. Her hands shook as she held her clutch. She moved toward the restroom, head down, but even there, she couldn't escape. Two women she didn't know were already murmuring. See her. She was forming a big madam online. Soft life is expensive oh. If you borrow it, it will disgrace you. She entered the stall and locked it, pressing her palm to her mouth so her sobs wouldn't echo. Her chest felt too tight, as if the corset of her dress was crushing her lungs. When she finally stepped out, she saw her reflection. The makeup was still flawless, but her eyes were swollen. She looked like a bride at a funeral. Outside the restroom, her phone kept buzzing. She didn't need to open it to know what was happening. Lagos would not wait for official facts. Lagos would create the story and spread it before morning. She walked out of the hall alone, ignoring the stares, ignoring the pity, ignoring the laughter that was pretending to be sympathy. At the car park, a driver she didn't recognize approached her. "Madam, your husband asked me to take you home." She stared at him. "Where is he?" The driver hesitated. "They took him." She swallowed hard. "Which they?" The driver looked away. "Madam, those people." Her knees went weak. She leaned against the car, feeling the night air sting her skin. This was the moment she understood, the marriage she had bragged about, the soft life she had displayed, the victory she had claimed, was now a public collapse that would follow her everywhere. She got into the car and watched Lecky lights blur through the window like tears she refused to shed. For the first time since she left Surulere, she wished she could return to a life where shame didn't have this kind of microphone. By morning, the story had spread. It wasn't even noon before she saw the first blog post. No names at first, just hints, blurry videos, captions like Lagos big boy finally exposed. Then someone tagged her page. Then another. Soon, her name was sitting in comment sections like a punishment. Her husband didn't come home. Calls went unanswered. Messages remained unread. When she called his friends, they avoided her. When she called a family member of his, the line went dead after one sharp sentence, "Face your problem." She sat on the sofa in her quiet Lecky apartment, staring at the walls as if they would explain how everything had collapsed in one night. The security guard downstairs no longer greeted her with the same respect. The cleaner arrived late and moved stiffly, eyes lowered, as if she was now working for someone cursed. In the afternoon, a knock came. Her heart jumped. For a second, hope flared. Maybe he was back. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe Lagos would move on. She opened the door and froze. Two men stood there, one holding a file, the other holding a small pad. Their faces were polite but hard. "Madam," the man with the file said, "we are here regarding outstanding payments." She gripped the door handle. "This is my home." The man nodded as if he had heard it before. "It is the property your husband listed in a transaction. We are here to confirm items and serve notice." Her mouth went dry. "I don't understand." "You will," he replied, not unkindly. "We advise you to speak to him immediately." After they left, she closed the door slowly and leaned against it, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. Her hands trembled. Tears came finally, hot and unstoppable. This wasn't just a fall. This was a stripping. Everything she had worn like status, Lecky, the gowns, the parties, the captions, was being peeled off in public. And the worst part was the silence. No husband to defend her. No soft life to hide inside. No audience to impress. Just her, alone, facing the bill for a life she had chased. The apartment was still beautiful, but it no longer felt like hers. Her phone buzzed nonstop, blog links, voice notes, sorry messages that sounded like gossip wearing a headscarf. She stopped replying. Every notification carried the same reminder: Lagos had seen her fall, and Lagos would not keep quiet. Her husband didn't come home. When she called, it rang and rang until it cut off. When she messaged, the tick stayed stubbornly gray. The silence told her what pride wouldn't let her admit: he was saving himself first. On the third day, she went to the bank branch in Victoria Island, hoping a human face would explain what his confident mouth had hidden. The customer service lady typed for a long time, then gave her a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Madam, that account has restrictions," she said. "What kind?" Her voice sounded small to her own ears. "There are holds," the woman replied carefully. "And loan obligations attached." Her stomach dropped. "So, there's no money?" "Not at this time." Outside, the heat hit her like punishment. She sat in her car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, replaying every red flag she had laughed at: late payments, secret calls, the sudden anger when she asked questions. It hadn't been a soft life. It had been a borrowed life. That evening she called her mother. She tried to explain, but before she even finished, her mother's voice cracked. "My daughter, what did you do?" The question broke something in her. Not because her mother was cruel, but because the shame had finally reached home. And she realized this fall wasn't only happening online. It was happening inside her family's name, inside the prayers her mother had prayed, inside the pride she had carried like a handbag. When she ended the call, she sat alone in the quiet apartment and understood one hard truth: the bill had come due, and it had her name on it too. That night, she dialed the only number she had sworn she would never call again. He answered on the second ring. His voice was calm, steady in a way that made her feel both comforted and exposed. "Hello. It's me," she whispered. A pause. "I know." Her throat tightened. "I'm in trouble. Everything collapsed." "I heard," he said, simple and honest. She rushed the words out before she lost courage. "I made a mistake. I chose packaging. I mocked you. I'm sorry." He didn't insult her. He didn't raise his voice. That gentleness was the sharpest thing of all. "You wanted the picture," he said quietly. "Not the truth." Tears slipped down her face. "Please, just help me. Even if it's small. I don't know where to start." "I won't hate you," he replied. "But I can't save you." Her chest heaved. "So you're abandoning me too?" "No," he said, firmer now. "I'm choosing peace. I loved you when I had nothing. You left when all I needed was belief. I won't rebuild my life on your regret." She wanted to promise she had changed, but the truth sat heavy. Her apology was real, yet it had been dragged out by consequences. He softened again. "Start again. Work. Heal. Let this teach you. But don't come back to me because Lagos has humbled you." The line went quiet, then he added, "I wish you well." And the call ended. The next morning, she removed her ring and placed it in a small box at the back of a drawer. 2 weeks later she left Lekki quietly, returning home without applause, without cameras, without captions, just a suitcase and a lesson she would carry longer than any designer bag. She found small, honest work. She learned how it felt to earn slowly, to sleep without performing, to build without borrowing. Months later, she saw a photo online, him smiling beside his team, a woman at his side looking at him with trust. The sight stung, but it also cleared something in her chest. The punishment wasn't that she didn't get him back. The punishment was knowing she once held something real, then traded it for a life that never truly existed. Some stories don't need punishment to teach the lesson. They only need space. If this story stayed with you, if it brought up thoughts about value, choices, or what really lasts, you don't have to rush away from it. I've created a quiet comfort companion for the moments after the story ends. It's linked in the pinned comment for anyone who wants to sit with the lesson gently, without judgment, and without pressure. Take what you need. Leave the rest.